Hi, and thanks for joining us here at Rose Quartz Mediumship podcast, where we simply adore anything and everything healing and metaphysically based. If you are in my reality, then you know that I have a deep, deep love for somatic healing. And I just want to give one example about why. When I was going through my Somatic Certification training, and I was in my level 1 training, it was before I had even started my level 2 training, I did a somatic session on myself. And if you followed me on that journey, you know that I did a somatic session on myself all the time. All day, every day, I was using somatics. I'm somebody who loves to jump into the deep end of whatever it is that I'm experiencing. Whether that be something that I adore or whether that be shadow work. I will always jump into the deep end and I will immerse myself in it. And it's really the only way that I know how to move through the world. I'm not somebody who wants to tiptoe in the shallow end. I really love the experience of feeling, of being present with the things that are happening for me in my reality. I don't want a watered down version of my life. I want to feel it. And so I did a somatic session on myself, and I ended up looking at a memory. And I'm going to explain that a little bit, and then I'm going to back up and give you the story. But I looked at a memory from childhood that was connected to mediumship and my connection with spirit. And it's something that I had very conscious awareness of, and I'd looked at it multiple different times in multiple different ways. I looked at it extensively when I was going through my Reiki training, when I went through my shamanic apprenticeship, and I looked at it when I went through my druid training. But this was completely different for me. The somatic session started with a sensation inside of my body. And in the world of somatics, you follow whatever's alive. And I actually didn't know the memory that sensation inside of my body was connected to. But I immersed myself deeply in the sensation, not trying to change it, but just allowing it to be exactly what it was. And as I felt that sensation, emotions started to come up, asking to be felt. And that's the beautiful thing about somatics, is that it gets you into your body, and it gets you into the memories that your body is holding that are defining your life. And the body is such a great communicator of the unconscious and the subconscious. And I'm going to explain that here in a second. I say frequently that the body is the voice of the unconscious or subconscious. And it spoke to me in the most beautiful way. So as I followed the sensation and then the emotions that came up, I was kerplunked into the memory of talking to my mother about mediumship and some experiences that I'd had. And I would say in this memory, I'm probably 4 or 5. And again, this is something that I've looked at extensively, and didn't think that there was anything there left for me to look at. I felt like I had processed it fully. And what was so interesting is that my body was still holding on to this memory. And as the memory came up, and again, I allowed it to be exactly what it was. I didn't try and change it. I didn't try and tell myself that I'd already processed it and I'd already looked at it. I was just present with it. And as I was present with it, I began to understand that that was a defining moment in my life. That conversation with my mom shifted the trajectory of my life. I began to question my relationship with spirit. And I would tell you consciously that I didn't. And actually, if you look back at stories that I've told of my mediumship, you will hear me say that my mom had said to me that I was just dreaming, and that I knew that that was not true. Which is true. I knew in the moment that it wasn't true. I knew that I wasn't dreaming. And what I had missed was that it was the beginning of me questioning my relationship with spirit. And me questioning my relationship with spirit led me into a place where I simultaneously was trying to validate my relationship with spirit outside of me. I was looking for other people to tell me that I had a deep relationship with spirit. And obviously, no one could tell me that. It didn't matter how many readings I did. It didn't matter how many experiences I had. It didn't matter how effective I was at communicating with spirit. No other human was ever going to do that work for me. It didn't matter the amount of validation that I got from the outside world, because I was not at peace with that relationship inside of myself. And so it led me into a place where I was simultaneously trying to prove my relationship with spirit to the outside world and ultimately to myself. And at the same time, I was trying to deny it. I was trying to deny it because I was told that it wasn't true. And this was not a malicious act from my mom. I love her. She was the most amazing mom that I could have ever picked. And she was divinely right for me, which is why I ended up with her. She was never trying to harm me. She was never trying to change the trajectory of my life and who I am. But it did. And this is the thing. It was an important part of my journey. And I would do it all again in a split second. And I don't blame her. And I don't place any fault on her. She didn't know better. She didn't have the kind of relationship that I had with spirit at that point in her life and at that point in my life. And as a mom, she was just trying to support me in the best way that she could. And it made me start to question my relationship with spirit. And as someone who runs a business that is based around spirit and the connection with the spirit, it shifted me. And in that somatic session, when I could understand that this was the moment, the defining moment that made me want to prove myself, that made me want to deny this part of me all at the same time, I understood myself so much more deeply, because a very authentic and real part of me that makes me unique is my relationship with spirit. And that's not to say that my relationship with spirit is better or worse than anyone else. It is just part of what makes me unique. And so this uniqueness inside of me, I was at war with. I wasn't at peace with it. Which means that I was at war with myself and the uniqueness of who I am as I move through this human experience. And when I was able to really see that and understand myself, everything changed. Everything. In that one moment of being able to see where and why and how I developed this desire and this need to prove myself and deny this part of me, something shifted. And I stopped. I stopped needing anyone else to tell me that my relationship with spirit was deep. I already knew that. Somewhere in my body, somewhere in my being, had always been the deepest form of trust and knowing that I am spirit. And I don't need to prove that to anyone. And when that shifted for me, I no longer needed to deny that part of me, and I no longer needed to prove that part of me. And I cannot express clearly enough the ease and peace that I began to experience simply from understanding this. Sometimes when we do somatic sessions, the integration and the follow-up can be extensive. And sometimes when we do a somatic session, the awareness itself is the integration, is the healing, is the shift. And then we just get to live that new truth because it's so clear, it's undeniable. We don't need an integration. That was the integration. And it just places us back on our path in life. And so I wanted to share that story with you because it changed me. And by change, I mean it helped me to remember who I am, the uniqueness of who I am. And I will never lose that. I get that. And there is an ease that I feel inside of my body, and there is a peace that I get to experience in my life because I got access to that truth that I was holding in my body that was in resistance to the truest, deepest, most authentic version of me. And when I was able to see it, and when I was able to feel it, and when I was able to understand it, and I was able to release it, I found myself. And it is just one of the reasons that I deeply love somatics. And I have done a lot of healing work and used a lot of different modalities. And I've never gotten the kind of results that I've gotten with somatics, which is why that I say that it is the most powerful modality I have ever worked with. And I have worked with some really potent medicine in this human experience. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be right for everybody. But it's right for me. And I get to watch how it changes and shifts so many of my clients. Stuff that might take them months or years to get under and to change. I watch them change so quickly. And I get to watch them, and it is such a gift. It is such a privilege to get to sit in sacred space with people and witness them healing in real time, right in front of me. And it's why I love somatics. And in particular, the form of somatics that I was trained in. I had looked at lots of different forms of somatics, being a physical therapist and being in touch deeply with the body. Somatics just made sense to me. But I hadn't found the right form of somatics until I took the certification training that I took. And it unlocked me. It unblocked me. It opened me in a way that is difficult to describe, but I hope that you can feel it as I have this conversation with you. And it became an integral part of my business because I watched how powerful it was, and I watched how empowering it was, and I experienced the potency that it had to offer me. And then I get to watch it with client after client after client. The only thing that makes us human is our body. And this human experience is such a gift. It doesn't always feel it, right? There are lots of uncomfortable parts of it. But when you can really zoom out away from it, from the 30,000 foot view, you'll recognize what a gift this human experience is. And the body that allows us to be human is so sacred and so deep. And it is one of the best mentors who you will ever work with. I say over and over and over again that the body is the best divination tool you will ever own. And when I think back about the version of me who used to say that before going through the somatic training, I giggle. Because I was saying the words, but there were so many layers to that onion that I hadn't gotten the ability to experience yet. And when I did, I really understood the statement that our body is the best divination tool that we'll ever own. Your body will connect you to the essence of who you are if you allow it to. And so I just wanted to take a minute and explain just one of thousands of experiences that I've had with somatic healing, and why it is that I think that everyone deserves the right to experience somatic healing and the potency that it can bring, the freedom that it can bring, the ease that it can bring, and the love that it can bring, and the authenticity that you will get to experience when you have worked with the medicine of somatic healing. I hope that you are having a beautiful morning, day, evening, or night, wherever it is that this podcast is finding you.